To all Reddit travelers, what is your creepiest hotel story? My mom was traveling for work and sat next to a man, fellow business traveler, on the plane. They had a casual conversation and exchanged business cards. Later that evening she's in her hotel watching TV, and gets a phone call from the front desk that her husband is here and they want to know if they can give him a key to the room. Turns out the creep on the plane was pretending to be her husband to try to get into her room. Found a hotel in Yangon, Burma, the day we got there for pretty cheap. They mentioned the rates were low because maintenance was being done on several floors. We sleep fine, wake up and head to breakfast. At breakfast we met some Germans who had also stayed the night in our hotel. They said they had not slept well because during the middle of the night someone woke them up, to move them from the floor they were on. We, us and the Germans, found out later that they had been moved because they were on one of the levels reserved for maintenance, and part of the maintenance included gassing the rooms for bugs. During the middle of the night they were just going around the rooms shoving the gas nozzle or whatever under the doors and letting them run. Wound up killing the two people next to the Germans before they realized they'd accidentally booked people on that floor. We weren't on that floor thankfully, but it has always stuck with me how seemingly easy it could have been to have gotten mixed up in that. Good night, sleep tight, don't let the bedbug asphyxiation spray kill you at night. In 1996, while air drying naked after a shower lying on my hotel bed in Beijing with the curtains drawn, I received a call demanding I put on clothes. What the F? So the room was bugged? It was in Red China, in a hotel authorized for foreign guests. I hope you proceeded to do the windmill for them and pick up pennies. I arrive at a secluded, coastal hotel south of Marmaris, Turkey around 2 a.m. It had been a long day in Istanbul followed by a flight and long bus ride into Marmaris where I haggled with non-English speaking taxi drivers, who were not even aware that this small resort exists. When the taxi pulls up to the hotel, it's on fire. When the owner, standing out front, sees us, he opens the taxi door excitedly. You come. I have nice room for you. I point out that the hotel is on fire but he simply gestures and says, small fire. No problem. You come. I am utterly exhausted. I find myself following the owner into the hotel, stepping over fire hoses, waving away smoke, passing firefighters as they run up and down a very nice staircase. We pause at the second floor landing and the owner tells me, see? Fire only on this side of hotel. This side no fire. You come. My exhaustion removes every ounce of common sense and I follow him to a room down the hall. The room is indeed fire-free. I quickly scan the, in case of fire message, on the back of the door, check the window escape, and promptly pass out with my gear and boots on. In the morning I awake alive wondering if I dreamt the entire thing. I go down the smoky stairs past the charred other side of the hotel. The owner is so happy to see me still alive that he eats breakfast with me. I went back a few years later and the hotel had fully recovered. I once stayed in a B&B which had a shared bathroom. The first night I got up at probably like 2 a.m. and I was bursting for a pee. The bathroom was down the hallway, not too far but seemed like such an effort in my tired state. I get to the bathroom and open the door and there was this guy just standing in the bathroom, dressed head to toe in a mime costume. Face painted and everything. He was squatted down on the floor but his trousers were still up. I looked at him for a second, he gave me a wave with a smile and began just silently pushing. I just ran back to my room, locked the door and decided to pee in a bottle. I'm still not sure if I was just really tired and seeing things or something. It's seriously the strangest thing I've ever seen. I arrived late at a hotel for a business trip. Flight had a malfunction so we had to land. They fixed it on the tarmac and we never deplaned. Room already paid for, confirmation number in hand, etc. I got there about 5 hours after I was supposed to be there. Of course, they gave away my room. I already wasn't happy from all the delays and I wasn't going anywhere. The event I was there for was in their hotel. I wanted my room. I was polite but resolutely firm. They did some scrambling and asked if I would consider a damaged room under construction. As long as the sheets are clean so I can go to bed, I don't care. Was my reply. Mistake. The room they gave me was literally a crime scene. The case had been closed so there was no legal issue to contend with, but someone had been killed, or nearly killed, not 100% sure, in that room. They had primed over the blood stains on the walls and ceiling but had only taped down semi-clear plastic over the pooled blood on the carpets. Multiple small holes in the walls had obviously been patched and sanded, but there were multiple small holes in the wall. They gave me a completely new bed and TV from on-site inventory, so I was comfortable, but man, it was creepy as hell. The creepiest part was the priming job. It was so obviously blood splatter. You could see where the person had been hit and where they fell. You could also see how they had tried to get up and where they had finally collapsed. Okay, so I already posted this on another thread, but when I was about 4 years old my family ended up staying at the Cedar Lodge Motel, where Cary Stayner worked right before he murdered 4 women. My family drove to Yosemite, and it was a long drive for us, 3 kids all under the age of 7 plus 2 adults, and a F-ton of mountains will do that. By the time we arrived at the motel, it was late, we were all cranky, and we couldn't wait to get out. But the moment we pulled in, something set my mom's teeth on edge and she insisted that we left and found another hotel, reservation or not. My mom has always had this like sixth sense, and her gut has actually saved us a couple of times, but my dad was tired and convinced her to ignore her gut and stay for just the night, and the next morning we'd leave. I can remember my mom actually refusing to let go of our hands, making us stay right by her side as she kept looking around while checking in. To try and get her to relax, my dad suggested we go to the pool, thinking it would calm her down. Well, when we got there, there were no towels, so my mom called the front desk. The moment the man delivering towels arrived, my mom immediately grabbed us out of the water and rushed us back to the room. The man gave her the absolute creeps, and she says there was just this feeling of pure evil when he looked at us. That night my mom and dad pushed the dresser in front of the door and had us all sleep in the same bed. The next morning, we left to go to another hotel, but my mom couldn't stop talking about how evil that motel was. About 2 months later, she and my dad were up late watching the news when they started reporting on a man who had murdered a woman and 2 young girls in Yosemite. Just as my mom began to say, "I bet it was at that motel," they showed Cary Stayner's face and said it occurred at the Cedar Lodge Motel. Cary Stayner was the man who brought us our towels at the pool. We've never gone back to Yosemite, and my mom is always insistent that we listen to our gut feeling, and when every bone in your body is telling you something is wrong, GTFO. I was staying in Birmingham, Alabama at a Hyatt. Nothing crazy. Nothing obviously creepy. One night around 2 a.m. I woke up to a man screaming. Like, stabbed in the heart scream. I sat there in a panic, wondering if I should call someone, but when I didn't hear anything else I chalked it up to a dream. The next night I woke up around 3 a.m., and had this horrible feeling that someone was in my room. I rolled over and there was an old man, sitting on the AC, it was boxed in, smoking, looking away from me. I stared at him for a few seconds and he turned to look at me. So I shot up out of bed, ready to run, and no one was there. I don't lucid dream. While I have vivid dreams, they are not that vivid. I can describe that man to a T, and yet he was never there. Okay, I've got 3 creepy stories back from when I was backpacking through India with my girlfriend. We are 2 girls from Europe. In Bangalore we booked a hotel after 18 hours spent in a night bus. We were very tired and wanted a bed and some food. The boys at the reception were kind of creepy and staring at us all the time, but we shrugged it off and went in our room at around 9 in the evening. At around 11 the lights went completely off. I tried to call the reception but the phone was out. Suddenly the door handle to our room started moving. I turned on the lantern on my phone and looked at the door. It was slowly opening. My girlfriend screamed and I jumped off the bed, pushing the door back into its place. The person outside was pushing as well, so we fought like this for a little while. Then I locked the door again. 5 minutes pass and we hear the noise again. The person outside had a key and now they were opening the door slowly. It was so creepy, I kept banging on the door shouting, "Get the F out! Help!" We called the police, who eventually did nothing. We didn't sleep the whole night. We were in South, booking a hotel. My girlfriend was using the bathroom when she suddenly started screaming. I went in just in time to see a hole in the ceiling and an eye. The person ran immediately and we could hear the footsteps on the roof. After our 6 months travels, we were really tired of booking cheap and scary places for sleep. I had an accident and was barely moving, so I asked my girlfriend to book the nicest hotel, asked specifically for white sheets. It was my time to shine. So the hotel looked nice, white sheets indeed. The guy at the reception was sleeping in a sleeping bag in the reception, but whatever. We went to sleep in our white sheets just to wake up hours later covered in ticks and bug beds full of our blood. 5 out of 7. My husband's family is from India and 0 out of 10 of them would recommend 2 girls backpacking without any males through India. Actually, 0 out of 10 would recommend backpacking through India at all. You are so lucky you survived. Was in San Juan del Sur, Nicaragua last year. Massive spiders all over the room. Even woke up with a couple of little scorpions in my bed the first morning. Next night I'm sitting at the bar, drinking and chatting with a mate, feel a tickle on the back of my neck and think it's a mosquito or something. Brush the back of my neck and another mother effing scorpion, this time way bigger, plops on the ground at my feet. Stared at it for a moment in shock, squealed like a girl, squashed it and kept drinking. Gah, I hated those big spiders in Nicaragua. They're so fast. And if they come in contact with you, you'll get a painful rash. Worst. Ever. Well, apparently I am never going to Nicaragua. Oh, I have one. Though this has turned out quite long to describe. So, mine takes place in a London hostel a few weeks ago. I have 2 friends with me that are both male, and we're staying in a 9-bed mixed dorm. There are 3 sets of 3-tier bunk beds. I'm in the bottom bed of the right bunk, friend 1 in the top of my bunk, friend 2 in bottom bed of middle bunk. So, we get in at 2 a.m. and all just quietly get in our beds. After a few minutes of lying there trying to sleep I hear rustling behind me. I'm lying on my side facing the wall. So I think it is just someone going through their bag and ignore it. Then I feel a hand on my hip over the cover. I turn around and it's a random guy telling me to move over and trying to pull at my cover. I initially thought he was drunk and wasn't sure which bed to be in, so I tell him to go find his own bed, and then he shuffles away to bottom bed of left bunk. Then he comes back again. I again tell him to go back to his own bed and he shuffles back to his own again. This happens another couple of times, with me gradually speaking louder and getting less polite telling him to F off. So I'm shaking cause the situation is making me nervous, and message my mate that's on the top bunk, saying I don't think I'm going to be able to sleep that night. He messages back casually thinking it's cause of someone snoring. This is when I find out both my mates have earplugs in, and although they've heard me speaking, they each thought I was speaking to the other friend. So I tell him the situation and he starts keeping an eye out. I hear the guy go to the bathroom that is en suite, but I can tell from the light he left the bathroom door open whilst doing so and refused to look. My mate fills me in that the guy was walking round with his pants down and deliberately left the door open to get me to look, but either way the guy goes back to his bed after and we think the situation is finally over. Then it happens again. My mate keeping an eye out shines his phone light on the floor and shouts for the guy to F off. Apparently he was crawling across the floor again towards me. The guy suddenly takes offense at my mate's light shining on him, and starts actually climbing the bunk ladder like King Kong to get to my mate on the top and was trying to take his phone. They wrestle for a while with my mate actually kicking the guy in the neck to try and keep him away, only for the guy to swing backwards and come straight back at him again. I use this time to run for security, who find the guy still hanging on the bed when they get there, then call the police and have the guy taken away in a riot van and banned from the building. Whilst the police had dragged him outside waiting for the riot van, the guy even head-butted the brick wall several times. No idea what that guy was on because it wasn't alcohol, but definitely on something to take a kick to the neck and still act like nothing happened afterwards. The guy kept trying to blame my mate when security came as well, saying things in broken English like, "Come up here and see how violent this guy is." My other mate that had slept through the whole incident, kept saying the next day that he couldn't believe how friendly everyone in London is. My company would put us up in the Shiloh in downtown when we were in Salt Lake City. A coworker of mine was awakened in the middle of the night by the sounds of a bunch of kids in the hallway. It went on for longer than he could tolerate, so he opened the room door to tell them to hush, only to find the hallway empty. He could still hear the children, so figuring they were in an adjoining room, he called down to the front desk to complain. The man at the front desk claimed to be certain there were no kids staying on that floor, but that he was certain the noise would subside in a bit. He offered to send up some earplugs. My coworker was a bit annoyed. "How can you say there are no kids here when I'm hearing kids?" but went back to bed and eventually fell asleep. The next day when he was checking out, a different clerk made the mistake of asking the routine question. "Was everything satisfactory with your stay?" My coworker gave her an earful about the noisy kids, and how the other clerk had dismissed his complaints. The clerk looked a little uncomfortable, and said in a half-whisper, "We are not supposed to talk about our history with guests. But please do a Google search for Rachel David and you'll understand what happened to you. We get similar complaints every few weeks, and we try to never put kids on that floor." In the van on the way to the airport, he read on his phone the story of how a mother, Rachel David, had tossed her 7 children off the 11th floor balcony of the hotel, then called the International Dunes, to their deaths before jumping herself. Holy crap. Thank you for sharing, what a messed up story. Feeling effed up right now imagining a mother prying her children's fingers off the railing and watching them screaming on the way down. What the F? Checked into a hotel on vacation. Everything was going okay. Woke up one night to erratic movement of the door handle as if someone was trying to get in or break the door down. Always happened in the dead of the night when in deep sleep. As soon as I woke up it would stop. Spoke to a hotel manager about it and he told me it was a patient who was recently released from a mental institute, who does this as he still thinks he is locked up in the institute. A combination of not taking his medication and sleepwalking makes his randomly try and kick doors down within the hotel. The family was very wealthy and connected and the manager didn't want to kick up a fuss for chucking out someone who can shut his business down very quickly. I left after a week because it got worse. This happened to my father, not me, but definitely too creepy not to share. My father went with a group to go on a trip to Tanzania to do some medical work in a poorer village. For a few nights of the trip the group stayed in a hotel. My dad was sharing a room with another man from the group, separate beds. One night, he is woken up by his roommate who has the light on. He looks terrified, trembling and praying. My dad asks what's wrong but he won't say anything about it. My dad is obviously concerned, but since he can't do anything about it, he goes back to sleep. The next night, in the middle of the night, my father gets up to pee. He walks to the bathroom and starts to relieve himself when he catches a very strong scent of body odor. He and most of the people from the group are daily deodorant wearers, being from the US. Many locals in Tanzania don't wear it as frequently, so when the smell hits his nose he realizes he and his roommate might not be alone. He turns around and sees standing there in the doorway, a local woman shaking violently, her eyes rolled up locked on the ceiling. He panics, as no one should have been able to get into the room. He turns back around towards the bathroom in a moment of confusion, but when he turns back she just gone, as if she had never been there. Shaken, he goes back to bed thinking maybe he was dreaming or seeing things. He lays back down on his side and adrenaline starting to wear off, he begins to doze off again. Suddenly the smell returns. He slowly rolls over and looks to his left. There in the bed beside him, is the woman, laying flat on her back, eyes glued to the ceiling. Again panicking, he breaks his line of sight to her and again she is gone. My dad wasn't able to get back to sleep. The woman never made another appearance. He asked his roommate about it the next morning and he had encountered the same thing the night before, which was why he was so shaken. It could be explained by the fact that they were both on anti-malaria drugs which can have side effects that include strange dreams, but still. Super creepy. And definitely weird that even if it was caused by the medication, both my father and his roommate experienced the same thing. My girlfriend works as a TV commercials producer and often travels to South America, mainly Argentina. One night she woke up at around 3 a.m. to find a male hotel employee standing at the foot of her bed staring at her. When they checked the CCTV, he had been doing it for hours that night and for the previous 3 nights. When I was about 4, my family was at the resort in St. Kitts. I was swimming with some of the friends I made there, when one of them speaks of a woman at the pool, calling her retarded. I didn't know what that meant at the time. She had some mental disability, I don't know what it was. One point during the swim I found myself in front of her, and out of sight of my parents. I don't remember anything leading up to this moment, but I remember her telling me, "Close your eyes and you'll get a big surprise." I did, not knowing any better, and she started hitting the top of my head with her fist and holding me underwater. Luckily my mom spotted this happening and stopped it. The woman who tried to drown me had a helper who was supposed to keep an eye on her, but was found suntanning and not paying any attention at all. My mom lost it on her for not paying attention. This whole thing was more scary than creepy, but it's stuck with me ever since, so I thought I'd share. I toured around in bands a lot in my 20s, and not once but twice came back to my hotel room to find a turd in my shower. I was the only person with a key to the room. One was in Germany and one was in Belgium. 2 years apart, completely separate tour and crew. Phantom Crapper strikes again.